welcome to the May episode of the KNS writing program. Today we're going to continue looking at the essay type that we were looking at in the last video, which was back in March. So if you need to jog your memory, I highly suggest you go and revisit what we covered in the last video. The essay type that we will be continue looking at today is a 2-question essay. And in the last video, we took a look at this very basic template, and I mentioned that each body paragraph should be mentioning at least 2 main points, right? So in this sample essay that we looked at last time, the first body paragraph talks about health as its first main point, and then as the second main point talks about crime. And now the second body paragraph talks about people's awareness as the first main point, and as the second main point talks about government infomercials. Now, if we take a look at this sample essay, we can see that health and crime are 2 very distinct topics to be talking about under the same umbrella of, the problems that drugs cause. However, if we look at the second body paragraph, people's awareness and government infomercials, in my opinion, are very closely related to each other. They both fall under the same category of, educating the public about the dangers of drug use. Now, while this is not an incorrect way to go about writing your body paragraphs, I do want to suggest in this video kind of a better way to structure your essay so that your argument is much stronger. Now, I'm going to show you a visualization of 2 hypothetical structures of giving 2 main points for your argument. The first hypothetical structure is when the 2 arguments are very closely related to each other and therefore kind of seem very similar to each other. However, they are clearly distinct points, right? One is red and one is orange. The second hypothetical structure is when the 2 points, the 2 main arguments that you're giving are very distinct from one another, meanwhile still residing under the same category of your main argument. Which one do you think is going to possibly present a stronger argument? My opinion would be that the second structure, where the 2 main points are very much distinct from one another, might be able to present a stronger argument. And this is why. The more distinct your 2 points are, the more they can demonstrate breadth and well-roundedness of your argument. Now, this approach can show that your thesis can hold up under different circumstances or from different perspectives, and it can also implicitly insinuate that there are more ways to look at your given topic than what's discussed in the essay, right? So let's say that you discuss point A, and then you discuss point B. The fact that points A and B are so far apart may suggest to the readers that there are a lot of other points that could be discussed that falls between these 2 points that maybe you just, for the sake of the length of the essay that you just decided to skip over. So topics that discuss broad benefits, consequences, or policy arguments tend to be stronger with more distinct arguing points. Some examples of these topics would be, why cities should invest in public transportation, or how technology has transformed education, or our current topic that we're discussing with our sample essay, solutions to drug abuse. So to put that into perspective, the 2 main supporting points of the possible solutions in the sample essay were heightening people's awareness and investing in government infomercials. Now, like I said before in the previous slide, both of these 2 points fall under the big category of education, right? So for my taste, these 2 points are too closely related to each other to be able to really present a very strong point. Now, as an alternative, what I would suggest would be for the solutions to talk about education as a whole, and then, under this first supporting point, I could talk about people's awareness and government infomercials as some examples of the ways in which you could educate people. And for my second point, I would talk about government-funded rehab programs. Now, this is very much distinct distinct from education because government-funded rehab programs are not about educating the people about the dangers of drug use before they potentially partake in it. But the government-funded rehab programs are for people who have already taken, unfortunately, some bad decisions in their lives and need, physical aid to help them get out of the hole that they dug for themselves. Now, by discussing rehab programs that's physical help, along with education, which is kind of like a preemptive attempt at preventing people from partaking in drug abuse from the get-go, I can really present a strong argument for possible solutions of drug abuse by tackling it from various fields instead of just one field, which is just education. So the key here, even though I discussed two very distinct main points for my argument, the key here is to ensure that both points are still logically very closely related to your topic sentence and transition smoothly. If the points feel too disconnected or one feels completely random, that's going to hurt your essay because it's going to make the paragraph feel very unfocused. And now, even though I have argued for the sake of this essay that more distinct supporting points are better, this does not mean that keeping your supporting points closely related is an ineffective way to structure your paragraph. If your two supporting points are closely related, they can work to reinforce each other and make the paragraph feel cohesive and tightly organized. Now, this approach works really well when you're trying to emphasize depth or show different aspects of the same idea, or building on a single concept for topics that focus on mechanisms, processes, or effects of a single factor. For example, if you're talking about the impact of sleep on memory retention, you're probably not going to have a whole wide range of things to talk about to make your two supporting points so distinct. They are going to have to be pretty closely related because you're talking about, a specific phenomenon. Other topics like, the role of social media on shaping public opinion would follow the same kind of structure. So for your May topics, we have 4 topics in total as always. If you have been writing the first topic for your essay so far, maybe now is a good time for you to be trying to move on to the second topic or maybe even the third. And if you have been working on writing the second and third topics until now, maybe, now is a good time for you to start moving on to the third and fourth and so on and so on. And the first topic of May is, in many countries, the number of animals and plants is declining. Why do you think this is happening? How can this issue be solved? Number 2, some people choose to have their first child at an older age. What are the reasons? Do the advantages outweigh the disadvantages? And number 3, the rise of social media platforms has made it easier for people to vent their frustrations and complaints publicly. What is the consequence of this trend? Is there any benefit to expressing complaints on social media? And lastly, but definitely not least, advanced technology has brought many beneficial changes to the world. However, some old people today struggle with the use of technologies such as mobile phones and the internet. How can the elderly benefit from using advanced technologies? How can the elderly be encouraged to use consumer electronics more often? So again, some of these topics you're going to be very familiar with. Other topics, maybe not so much. I do really encourage you to try to tackle the topics that seem a little bit more unfamiliar to you. The aim of this whole writing program is to provide you with a space where you can really experiment with your writing, try to figure out what works for you and what doesn't work for you to really enhance your writing skills. So I really want to urge you to not be afraid to tackle some of the hard stuff. If there is such a thing as the best place to practice your writing, this is it. So yeah, please have fun with your writing, explore yourselves, your thoughts, your skills, the skills that you don't have yet. As always, I look forward to reading your essays. See you next month. Bye.